Oh, speaking of which, we received a very flattering. I post behind the scenes happenings, and I received from Celine. She sent some voice notes.
Oh.
So I've put the voice notes to some of your TikTok dance videos, and we're gonna play that. So why don't you play that right now?
I'm okay with this.
It's okay. Yeah.
I actually.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Full screen audio, and start it from the beginning.
Wait, guys, don't quote me.
Also, I know it's content, but I'm really tired of you guys only taking on dumb bitches and bimbos and fucking sluts on your show. Like, please have some respect for the female community, I guess, and cast somebody who isn't a total fucking idiot. Like, no wonder
Actually,
so many
I stand by
incels
this.
think that all of us are like this. You guys are showcasing the most dumb bitches I've ever seen in my life. I've literally never seen a more dumb group of women in one spot than your page. So thank you for that.
Very nice.
So real.
Very nice.
So real.
Wow, that's crazy.
I can appreciate that.
So guys, behind the scenes, discord.gg/whatever, discord.gg/whatever. Nick, just pull it up in the StreamYard here. The link, yeah. And yeah, if you want to see, I post a bunch of behind the scenes. I try to post quite frequently on there. So, and you can also interact with me. You know, I try to talk a little bit in the general chat. So, by the way, I disavow what you said. That's crazy.
It was a little on the extremist side.
Bimbo. You said bimbo. Bitches.
Well,
and what was the other one? Dumb?
I said it lightly.
I've never referred to any of my guests as stupid or dumb or
well, they're not here.
Or
they're not here today.
I don't think you have to refer to them. I think that everybody knows without you referring to them as that.
Well, hey, you guys are some real misogynists here. Okay?
It was only a select
I would
few.
never. First off, I don't think Nick. Have I ever called a girl a bimbo? No. On the show or privately?
Well, some people take it as a compliment.
That's true.
I don't.
Anybody here take it as a compliment?
Not
Selena,
necessarily.
Are you? Is it a compliment? What do you think?
I think what made you send that message? Like, did you feel like you wanted to be on here really badly?
There was a specific video that I did see. A few, actually. Sometimes they just ask very targeted questions to obviously not the brightest people in the room.
That's very insulting to the.
It's okay to not be that bright. It's okay. Some people it's not their strong suit. But I have seen the tendency to ask, not the brightest people in the room the questions, and then you get the not the brightest answer. And the comments are like, everybody's women
Can you
suck.
make that noise again?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think that's based if you have base takes. Like, if you're coming on here and you have base takes, which you may.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Anyways, that was funny. So that's behind the scenes.
I really appreciate that. Touched the heart, honestly.
Showing the video? Or?
I like it.
Just the little...
The montage?
Yeah, I really love that, actually.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We'll send it to you if you want to upload it to your...
I do.
So, okay, we're going to get back to... relationship status. So, tell me your relationship status.
So, I'm currently single. I was in a situationship with a red pillar. And that actually is what motivates a lot of my content. I like to spread awareness against the epidemic, which is red pill men.
Okay, epidemic.
Yep.
Of
red pill men.
What is an epidemic?
It's a crisis. It's
crises. Okay.
Yes, correct.
What is the crisis?
The crisis is that red pill ideology is being spread to all of these men. Actually, the United Nations also recognizes it as a crisis because red pill men are more likely to kill women.
When you say red pill, are you referring to what?
I'm referring to men that are extremely misogynistic and hate women. Are you unfamiliar with what red pill is?
Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of terms.
So are you unfamiliar with red pill?
Well, why don't you explain it to me? When you use the term red pill, what do you mean?
Okay, so the red pill movement came specifically, they're referring to the Matrix, when kind of men take the red pill and they become awakened to the fact that a lot of women are dangerous for society. Okay?
Did you just say that the fact that women are dangerous to society?
No.
Well, that's your position.
I never said that. I said
did.
this is what men who are red pillars do.
Really quick before I have you continue with the definition, you cited to the United Nations,
Yes.
which is incredibly biased, but okay.
Okay, what is the United Nations bias to?
Oh, there's massive left-wing bias in the United Nations. And like, for example,
Okay.
So for example, like they have a UN women, they don't have like a corresponding UN men.
Why would they?
What do you mean? Wouldn't that be equality?
So women have been oppressed for centuries.
Are women oppressed currently
Some may argue yes.
in the United States?
Yes, some may argue that.
Is the red pill predominated?
Do I think women are more oppressed than my other minorities? Not necessarily.
Okay, so
I
you're
think,
talking about intersectionality.
yes, I think white women may not be oppressed as women of color, but if we're talking specifically about black women, they are far more oppressed. And yes, they are disadvantaged because they're facing racism, but also misogyny.
Okay.
So anyways, but back to the United Nations being biased.
Yeah, it's
Okay, so you're
biased.
telling me that the United Nations, that has a Security Council that is filled with the United States, China, and other countries are left-leaning.
Yeah, it's if you look at, for example, the UN Women like Twitter account or like what they're doing, it's basically feminist propaganda. So feminism is more a left-wing ideology. So I would say if you're like propagating feminism, that is a left-wing bias.
Okay, so what the United Nations does, a lot of what they do has to do with advocating against genital mutilation in Africa, okay? So, of women.
Of women.
So is that like problematic? We shouldn't fight against that?
Oh, I'm against that 100%.
Okay, so who else is going to do that work if we're not talking about the United
mutilation,
Nations?
if we're going to bring up genital mutilation, I think it's fair to bring up the fact that actually male genital mutilation is actually far more prevalent and common throughout most, well, I don't know about in certain countries, but at least in the United States, for example, in many Western countries, male circumcision is completely rampant. And actually, there doesn't seem to be any sort of attention or push brought to this outside of like male spaces.
Okay, so are you trying to compare circumcision to female genital mutilation?
Yeah, well, I'm prepared to say this. So
there's a difference,
well, you gotta
because
allow me
as
to
a
finish.
man.
Yeah, I agree that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree that there's a difference, and I would be willing to grant, for example, like if we're comparing a one-to-one situation where like a woman has her clitoris removed versus like a fairly commonplace like medical circumcision, I'd be willing to absolutely grant that like the female genital mutilation is worse. However, there's far more instances of circumcision than there are of FGM.
Okay, so if you are a man who is circumcised,
Yeah.
can you still use your...
Can a woman who's FGM...
Can you still have an orgasm?
There's different types.
Well, so I would say, just to be charitable, for the majority of men, yeah, probably.
Okay.
However...
Versus...
Okay, that's fine. However,
and then we need to also look
but you
at...
got to let me finish if you're going to ask a question. So I would at least point out that it's not always the case that circumcisions happen without any sort of side effects or even like total loss of the penis. In fact, oftentimes, yes, in some cases with circumcision, there's total loss of the penis, there's like severe scarring, all kinds of things that can happen.
Okay, so here's what I want to say though.
Yeah.
I think there is a difference between why female mutilation happens versus circumcision happens, okay? So a lot of the time circumcision happens, it actually started in religion, and a lot of religions believe that it was better, it was either cleaner, or it was a way to show some type of religious whatever, okay? Versus female mutilation started so a woman cannot experience pleasure, because a lot of people a lot of the countries where you see female mutilation, they don't want that woman to experience pleasure. They don't want her to have an orgasm. They don't believe women should be having sex for reasons other than having children and childbearing. And so that is the difference. That is a key difference to note.
I mean, my understanding of the research I've done, this practice of female genital mutilation, it's actually something that's upheld by the women in these societies. And women will practice it on other women. So it's not like some evil conspiracy of men that are like holding these women down and mutilating their genitals. It's actually typically something that is both practiced by the women in either the tribes or in these societies. And in addition to that, it's also something that's kind of, there's a social pressure more so that women enact this upon other women versus some sort of patriarchal structure that is like oppressing women into getting FGM.
So a lot of people in specific countries aren't necessarily as educated on that, and so they may feel that way. But I do agree with your point that it may not be only the men. Like, men are these monsters that are forcing women to get mutilated. But I think a lot of the causes for a circumcision versus mutilation are different, and we need to look at the root causes for that.
Do you want kids when you're older? Or
I don't know.
if you were to have sons, would you have them circumcised?
It depends. I would look at the health benefits. I would look at how it would affect them when they grow up. And then I would base it off of that. I would want my kids to live a long, healthy life. So whatever would allow them to do that, I would do.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm prepared to say like FGM, and just to be clear, FGM is like terrible and it should be completely abolished in the countries that practice it. At least as it relates to the United States, though, FGM is completely, you can't do that. You can't do FGM. It's a criminal offense. Here, it's like a routine medical practice when there's a newborn boy.
So you feel that it harms those children to be circumcised?
Does
Yes. It does not.
I think,
It doesn't harm my child.
I mean, there's varying
I
levels.
think it does.
It doesn't.
But they're in pain afterwards, aren't they?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of different arguments. Like, for example, like you're inflicting a psychological wound by like, I mean, they scream and they cry when you do this procedure. So there could be like some potential argument as to like psychological damage that could be done. And in addition to that, while I would be willing to grant that in most cases, yeah, you have a circumcision and your penis down the road ends up working completely fine, I would argue that there is a proportion of people who do get circumcision who then grow up to have either scarring issues, they have trouble with, they have less sexual pleasure because that is like a, not to be graphic or whatever, but there's like pleasure, what's the nerves? Thank you. There's like nerves that are removed. So, I mean, they probably, still enjoy sex, but it like diminishes to some degree the sexual pleasure that they would have otherwise had.
So what do you say to religions like Christianity and other Abrahamic faiths that encourage that?
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely against it. I don't care what your religion says. Doesn't really matter. We should completely do away with circumcision. Yeah.
I think that a CT scan would show pre and post circumcision that there is trauma in the child's brain.
And sometimes they lose like part of the glands, they lose part of the head. In some rare instances, they'll lose the entire penis.
I believe that a part of circumcision, like coming into place in the first place, was because of Puritan culture. They wanted, in some instances, they wanted to remove the pleasure nerves.
Yeah, sure, that could be.
For men.
I think that could probably be the case, and I think there is some religious component to male circumcision. But I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of male circumcision. We were relating it to the UN, and my position was just that the UN as an organization clearly has a bias against men.
So
I don't think it's like a particularly...
So how does the United Nations harm men? How does it oppress?
I didn't necessarily say they harm men, but I might be able to make that argument.
Okay, so you feel that the United Nations, do you feel that it should exist?
Should it exist? Well, I'm not really like a geopolitics guy, so I would have to look into the benefits, like politically, of having the UN or whatever. However, like I do think it's, again, not really my wheelhouse, but at least as it relates to your claim about you citing to the UN saying, well, the red pill ideology, it's like, it's a emerging, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's this argument that the red pill is emerging terrorist threat to the United States, dangerous threat, and I think it's completely overstated.
So do you feel that you yourself are a red pillar?
What? You'll have to define red pill.
Well, if you are, can you define what you believe in?
Well, it depends. People have different definitions of it.
Okay, so what is your personal definition?
Well, first I would start off by saying, and I know you don't like this categorization or label either, I would say I definitely lean conservative. And I know in your notes you say you don't like conservatives.
Yeah.
But as it relates to the red pill, there's all kinds of really, there's really extreme stuff where you're getting into like basically like, as it relates to, some people can, like, you can be red pilled on like veganism. So like,
okay, but
I want to make sure we're being precise about like the terms here. So when I think of red pill, you mentioned the Matrix.
Yes.
I think that that's a fair characterization.
Okay.
So I think taking the red pill, I guess spoiler for the Matrix movie. So to take the red pill means you're pulling away the wool. What's the term? When
The wool over your eyes.
The wool over your eyes. You're basically seeing the truth of the world. And there's a lot of propaganda, and I think it'd be fair to say there's propaganda on both sides. Perhaps there's like Republican, conservative propaganda, and there's leftist, liberal, Democrat propaganda. And then there's the truth. And so I believe in the red pill, it's just the truth. So, and if those truths tend to be uncomfortable, we accept that regardless. So I would acknowledge, like, in the sense that I've taken the red pill, I believe in truth over discomfort. But like, if there's like a specific red pill ideology, like you, for example, Andrew Tate, some people would label him as a red pill, and he's like believes in polygamy, and he believes, I'm trying to think like a good example I could give as it relates to Andrew Tate. What's a Andrew Tate red pill argument? Do you have any
so that basically men are more oppressed than women are?
Does Andrew Tate argue that?
Many people and proponents of the red pill ideology argue that. Do you believe that?
Do I think men are more oppressed than women? Perhaps in some ways, yes. And you know what? Fuck it. I'll bite the bullet. Sure. Sure. I'm prepared to bite the bullet. Sure.
Okay, so then tell me more. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so, and I think first off, it's a bit geographical related, but at least in the United States, I'd be prepared to forward this argument. This would actually apply to almost all nations, almost all states. So throughout all of human history, the story of feminism is women have been oppressed, women have had it worst, men have had more privileges, men have had all these positions of power, men were the oppressors, women were the oppressed.
For sure.
Well, I kind of dispute that. And I think that perhaps you can make the argument that throughout all of human history, a very, very small proportion of men did have power. But I wouldn't say those men had power because they were men necessarily. They just happened to be from a long line of people who already had power. So power begets power. So I don't think it necessarily has to do with the fact that they have a penis and that they're men. This seems to be quite a bit of an oversimplification of really like complex power structures that exist in society. Because like I would just point to the 99% of both men and women who had absolutely no power through human history. So this idea that, well, men as a group, and let me just ask your position on this, are men as a group the oppressor class?
It depends. It is a lot more nuanced than that. I can agree with that. I think when we're talking about class struggle, that is one thing, okay? But then we're going to talk about, if we're talking specifically about gender, if we're looking at male and female, men, yes, have tended to maintain power and have held on to that power, right? So if we're looking at, for example, the Bible, okay? And something that's been there since people can cite it people have been citing it from the beginning of time, okay? the Bible in itself has misogyny in it, right? So if you're looking at the Adam and Eve argument, men have used that for centuries to oppress women, saying that women caused original sin, women are the root of all evil, Eve took a bite of the apple, so it's women's fault, okay? And that has really led to so much misogyny that is at the hands of men wanting to oppress women.
Wait, men want to oppress women because of
their faith, potentially.
Because of the original sin?
Potentially, I've heard that argument multiple times.
Well, I'm not, so just to be clear, I'm not going to forward any religious arguments. I'm agnostic.
Okay.
Although I do have pro-Christian sentiments.
So, yes.
But I'm not going to have a theological debate with you.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we should have a theological
debate. Are you
debate.
Religious? Are you?
But I am not, my religious beliefs don't necessarily bleed into my political beliefs.
Are you religious then?
In my personal life, yes.
What, are you Muslim or?
Yes.
Okay.
But I will say, this is what I will say. I will say that a lot of Christian ideals bleed into, yes.
If you don't mind, really quick, just on you're Muslim.
Yes.
Do you think Islam is less oppressive than Christianity?
I think that the media wants to frame certain narratives. I think if we're talking about religion,
sure,
a lot of times religion can be weaponized against women and used to oppress them, okay? And if we're talking about the West, of course the West is going to want to frame Islam, whatever, as oppressive, this, and that. Am I making the argument that Christianity is more oppressive than Islam? Not necessarily.
But I mean, I don't think it's just media framing. So I mean, we have, for example, Islamic doctrine that we can look at.
Okay, let's talk about that. What Islamic doctrine is oppressive to women?
Oh, well, I mean, again, I'm not a theological expert, but what I could point to, for example, like I think in Muslim majority countries, you tend to see less freedoms for women. So if you look at most Western countries that are either Christian or have like a Christian heritage, women have like really robust freedoms in either Christian countries or
so what do you
historically
define
Christian
as freedoms?
Countries.
Sorry.
Oh, sure, like ability to vote. Well, I mean, like, for example, do you think United States is more, at least as it relates to women, is more free than like Afghanistan, which is a Muslim country?
Yeah, but like in what regard? So if we're talking about women owning land.
All of them?
Like currently?
Yes. So if you're going to say, so are you saying that freedom equates to how women get to dress? Or are we talking about right to own land, etc.?
You think the only restriction on women's freedom in Afghanistan is their dressing ability?
No, I never said that. I'm just asking you to define freedom. Freedoms. Like if we're talking, okay, so if we're talking about, for instance, Saudi Arabia versus if we're talking about Afghanistan versus if we're talking about Iran, it's all different.
I mean, I would probably argue, again, I'm not the expert in like all, Muslim majority countries.
Yeah, so that's, so sorry to interrupt you, but that's what I'm saying. It's very nuanced.
Sure.
So I can't speak to all Muslim majority countries.
Sure. I would just
and then if we're talking about countries that are under the Taliban, or ISIS, etc., that's also very different.
And you did cite to female genital mutilation. You are aware that FGM is typically practiced, well, not exclusively, but it is more so practiced in Muslim majority countries than in Western Christian countries?
Yes.
Okay.
So again, that doesn't mean I agree with that practice. I think everyone, for example, if we're citing the KKK, the KKK claim to be Christian nationalists and they still kill black people, okay? So what I'm saying here is people take faiths and they become extreme. They can take an iteration of faith and take it way too far. But that is when I'm speaking for, in my personal life, I practice religion, that does not mean that I stand for a lot of the ways that it has been corrupted and a lot of social things that it imposes on women.
Well, hold on, but you really quick, you invoked the KKK here when we're talking about like the Islamic influence in Muslim majority countries.
So
wait, hold on. I think that's a bit of a false equivalence to say that, first off, the KKK has no political capital at all in this country. And it's a false equivalence because the Taliban has robust political power in Afghanistan, and that's not like...
So yeah, but there was a time that the KKK had robust influence here in the U.S., right?
Not necessarily.
I mean, I would agree. So I would agree. Historically, the KKK was bigger, had more influence, perhaps, 50s, 60s, 70s, but not anywhere near approaching the level of influence and power that like the Taliban has in Afghanistan.
Okay, and I agree that the Taliban and its practices are incorrect. But
Sure.
what I was pointing to with the KKK example is that a lot of time religion can be taken and manipulated. And so I'm saying in that specific instance, do I think that is a perfect iteration of what Islam should look like? Absolutely not. But am I here to defend Islam? No, I'm here to protect women's rights. And I think a lot of the times religion can be great, and it's a great thing to practice and keep in your life. Do I think it should bleed into politics and how we practice certain things and how women are treated? No, because it can always be co-opted.
Well, I guess just because you invoked the conversation about religion and you seem to have shifted blame towards Christianity, I was simply just pointing out you yourself are a Muslim, where, I mean, I think it would just be, it's objectively the case that at least as it relates to the religion, it seems far more oppressive to women's freedoms than Christianity. And then if you look at the fruits of Christianity, you look at Western countries that either are Christian or have a Christian heritage, Christian history, you can compare them to Muslim countries, Islamic countries. They're far more rife with lacking in rights for women.
I mean, to be honest, I disagree in the sense that I think a lot of the times there's a few things I want to say here, right? I don't want to have a theological argument with you, but I think if we're looking into the specific texts when it comes to the Quran versus the Bible, the Quran is less oppressive to women, especially at the specific time that it came down.
I think it is a matter of interpretation when it does come down to that. I think that your overgeneralization of the Bible itself is harmful.
I don't necessarily think it's an overgeneralization. I'm just saying if we look at the texts themselves, right? So I've studied both the Bible and I've studied the Quran, and I've looked at both of those texts. And by looking at the text, I can tell you that the Bible is more oppressive towards women, especially at the time that it came down, and the practices that were imposed on the women that were there, okay?
I think you are just experiencing selective exposure.
No,
to
I'm telling you that I
information.
read the text. It's not a selective exposure, but what I will say is that the way that those religions are practiced and people have taken them and people have grappled with them and what people have extracted from them and began to practice is very different than what's written in the text itself.
Those are fringe or extremist groups that the entire community should not be defined or labeled by.
Okay, I agree.
That's not what you said. You were demonizing the entire Christianity.
No, I was not demonizing Christianity. I was saying what was in the Bible.
You were saying that Christian men were weaponizing Adam and Eve's story.
Yes, and that is true. But I'm not saying that Christianity as
But not all Christian men weaponize it.
Okay, yes, but I was citing as an example. I was
not
saying
all Christian men interpret it that way.
I agree. I never said all men. I said specifically that a lot of times religion is pointed to as this is why women deserve to be oppressed. So I was citing that. And the same thing can be said for Islam. A lot of men use the Quran as a way to oppress women. Any religion can be used to oppress women. And so what I was saying was from the beginning of time, women have been oppressed due to men's iteration of certain religions.
Well, this toxic or this oppressive behavior that you're observing is an individual, not a community.
Yes, I'm saying that religion can be weaponized. That has nothing to do with the entire religion as a whole. I'm saying people can take religion regardless of what the religion is and weaponize
There
it.
will be extremist groups of any and every group that exists, but you should not label or define a
I
community
never
by
labeled
them.
anything as that. I just
You said Christianity is oppressive.
You weaponize.
I said
Christianity.
men can take Christianity and weaponize it.
I think that's an overgeneralization.
Saying that men can weaponize Christianity is an overgeneralization.
Yes.
That's
They
just
can. They can. They can weaponize it.
They can and they have.
Yeah,
It's
like all of
possible,
history.
but that is an
Yeah, so they're not the
overgeneralization. I don't
majority
think
of
you know
men.
what that means.
She never said the majority of men.
Hold on. Well, let some chats come through and then.
Jacob Joseph donated $200. Chair 1, you cited to the United Nations, the same United Nations that put Iran on the Human Rights Council. Can you please tell me about Iran's record on women's rights?
so yeah, sure, friend Joseph.
A message from the government of Canada.
Hold on. Well,
Pasty George donated $200.04. So, according to Chair 1, men such as myself who refuse to enter into a relationship with a Western woman,
I don't
or
know what
any
you meant,
woman
but-
influenced in any way by feminism, are bad and more likely to unalive women. LOL.
sorry for the delay
Yeah.
on these guys.
Champagne pop.
Sorry, 2 came in there. Do you want to address Jacob first and then Pasty?
Sure. What I'm gonna say to Jacob, right, is if you want to look at Iran, right, and you want to look at what happened, okay, you can blame the United States and you can blame the West for that, for staging a coup. The CIA was involved. Look it up, and putting Iran back into an oppressive regime.
And your response to Pasty George?
He said, "Oh, that men who reject feminism want to unalive women."
Anybody, really quick before you respond, anybody want champagne?
I'm okay.
Champagne? Champagne?
No, thank you.
1, 2, 3,
Do you
4.
happen to have cider?
No.
No.
Champagne? Okay. Sorry, go
But
ahead.
so I don't think, I think, yes, they have tendencies to be more dangerous towards women if you believe that you don't want to engage with any women that have anything to do with feminism. That's a bit concerning. And I think that men who believe that would be more violent towards
Pass it
women.
down. Well, too late now.
Well said.
Thanks.
Do you want to?
I'm okay. I'll take it.
Celine, I know you wanted to jump in on something there.
Yes.
I don't know if you still have that. But.
I'm not entirely educated on the actual texts in the Quran, and I've read the Bible as a kid, but not in recent times. So I'm not going to sit here and act like an expert. But from my knowledge, the literal, if we're talking about just the text here, not the connotations, not the implications, not the people behind the text, if we're talking about the text, I would argue that Islam is arguably more oppressive than Christianity, just text-wise. I would say that Christian people that I have had experience with have been a little bit more oppressive, but that's honestly because I've met more Christian people than I have met Muslims. But again, from my knowledge of the text, it's
Sure.
much more oppressive.